Good afternoon. This is the June 20th, 2024 Zoning Board of Adjustment regular meeting. My name is Matt Perry, and I'm chair of this board. I will now call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll so that we may verify the presence of quorum.
Board Member Callahan?
Present.
Eicholtz?
Here.
Grants-Korsch?
Here.
Hutchins?
Here.
Ingram?
Here.
Johannesen?
Aye.
Chair Perry?
Here.
Smikarova is absent. And Wing?
Here.
There are 8 members present.
Let the record show we do have quorum. With that, we'll proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's legislative information management system, available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. Is there a motion to approve this agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against indicate by saying nay. And that motion passes and the agenda is approved. I believe all the board members have seen a copy of the minutes from the June 6th, 2024 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against indicate by saying nay. Any abstentions? If you weren't here last time, please abstain. And that motion passes, and the minutes of the Zoning Board of Adjustment June 6, 2024 meeting are approved. Mr. Ellis, are there any petitions or communications?
Chair Perry, members of the board, we have one communication this evening, follow-up from an appeal of the decision of the board at 1617/1623 University Avenue Southeast, the turf appeals, the artificial turf appeals. At BIS, the appeal was denied. They upheld the board's decision and the zoning administrator's decision.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? I see none. Let's move on. A reminder to applicants and others, if you're going to speak at the public hearing, please send in the sheet available from the clerk over here. And speak clearly into the microphone. If you've not signed in, you can do so on your way out. Also to applicants and others, please contact staff after the hearing with any questions regarding your projects. Let's review the agenda. I will read the agenda number and address of the project and state whether it's slated for consent, continuance, withdrawal, return, or discussion. Consent items are those items that will be passed without discussion by the board. We will be adhering to the staff recommendation found on your agenda under the item's recommended motion section. Importantly, any applicable conditions will be listed in the same section. If you agree with this recommendation, including any applicable conditions, you need to do nothing and the board will pass it as recommended. After the item is passed on consent, you're free to leave the chambers. Please check in with the staff member assigned to that item if you have questions following the decision. If you disagree with the recommendation, please indicate you'd like to speak against the item when I ask, and we will put it on the discussion agenda. Discussion items. These are items for which the board will take public testimony, deliberate on, and make a decision. After the public testimony has been heard for each particular discussion item, I will close the public hearing for that agenda item. Once I close the public hearing for an item, no additional public testimony will be taken, but staff may be asked to address board questions. After the public hearing for an item is closed, board members will then discuss and act on motions, and the chair only votes in the case of a tie. So we have 2 land use request items on our agenda. Agenda item number 5 is 5631 Clinton Avenue. Staff is recommending this item for consent. Is there anyone to speak against this item? I see no one. And agenda item number 6 is 4737 Colfax Avenue South. This is a discussion item. Let's review the items on their agenda for consent. They're item number 5. Is there a motion to adopt this item on consent?
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? With that, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against indicate by saying nay. Any abstentions? That motion passes. So if you are here for agenda item number 5, your land use request is approved. Good luck with your project. Let's move on to our discussion item. This is 4737 Colfax Avenue South.
Thank you, Chair Perry and members of the board. I will be filling in for Staff Person Nicholas Ouellette today. My name is Miles Campbell. This project is a variance request in order to enclose an existing open front porch. The variance is to reduce the minimum required front yard setback required from 20 feet to 19.6 feet. In terms of the existing conditions of the site, the subject site is roughly 5,412 square feet. It is an interior lot and is zoned Urban Neighborhood 2 and is part of the Interior 2 Built Form Overlay District. That existing home was constructed in 1909 and does, as mentioned, already include an open front porch along the required front yard. That existing front porch projects 7.04 feet off from the front of the home itself, and it does fall 0.4 feet into what would be the required 20-foot required front yard. Staff will note, and you can see on the site plan diagram here, it is the southern portion of the porch itself that is at that short setback. Open porches, as is existing today, are a permitted encroachment into the required front yard. So where we would typically have that 20-foot line in the sand, we do allow open porches to encroach closer into that front yard, so long as they do not project more than 8 feet off from the existing building. Given that the existing porch is open, it is only 7.04 feet off from that front of the house. We consider it to be in compliance with the current zoning code requirements for open porches as a permitted obstruction. In terms of other kind of characteristics for the neighborhood, the surrounding neighborhood is generally made up of low-density residential units, is by and large zoned either urban neighborhood 1, 2, or 3. Many of the neighboring homes do feature similar vestibules or open porches, albeit these enclosures do not extend along the entire width of a front facade. Here you have an image, again, of that existing condition from the front yard looking to the east, as well as kind of a kitty corner shot looking to the southeast to show that existing open porch. Again, the proposal here would be to take that existing footprint and foundation and to enclose it, adding windows along both the front and both sides facades. This would add approximately 169 square feet to the principal structure. Once it is enclosed, it essentially becomes part of that principal structure in the zoning code's consideration. As a result, the principal building, in this case, the home itself, would encroach into that required front yard by the 0.4 feet that the current porch is over the 20-foot line. And as kind of the point of this entire variance request, principal buildings are not a permitted encroachment in that required front yard. Staff will note here, again, the applicant is proposing to add windows along all sides of this facade improvement, and that is consistent with the city's window coverage requirements for single-family residential homes. Again, here you can see sort of side-by-side from the existing photos with some 3D renders provided by the architecture team. Again, in this case, the porch is not getting any closer to the street than what is existing today. What is causing the need for a variance is the enclosing of that existing porch and incorporating that into the principal structure, which would put the principal structure at 19.6 feet back from the front property line as opposed to the required 20 feet. In terms of all variance requests, staff in the city evaluate these requests under the three-pronged test of unique characteristics being present, whether the proposed use is reasonable or in spirit and intent of the code, and finally, whether or not the improvement would impact the essential character or have any potential for injury or detriment. In staff size, 2 of these 3 findings are met. In terms of the reasonableness and the spirit and intent, the code does allow for permitted obstructions such as open porches and other vestibules to be in that front yard area in order to improve front facades throughout the city. Given that this is a relatively minor encroachment with the enclosure of 0.4 feet, staff feels that same intent of providing for open and inviting front facades is being met here. We also feel that this would not have any major impact on the essential character or have any potential for injury or detriment. Where staff does have some reservations is in regard to unique characteristics of the lot. The existing location of the home being at that 19.6 rather than 20 feet back from the property line is a circumstance that is existing prior to when the homeowner came into possession of the lot. This goes back to its original construction in 1909, excuse me. However, this is not really a unique circumstance in staff's eyes. Again, we allow for open porches to be even closer than 20 feet in many cases, as long as it is not more than 8 feet projecting off of the home itself, and so they are pretty common throughout the city. We also find that there are other opportunities available in staff's view to meet the actual code language itself. So either by reducing the size of this enclosed porch, again, by less than a foot, you could meet that requirement of 20 feet from the property line. Also, alternately, the homeowners and the architecture team could explore an addition to the rear of the home where there is ample buildable area to be used to add on to the space itself. The applicant notes that revising plans here and revising that footprint would require significant changes to the foundation, the roof, and also have some waste in materials. And while that is commendable, staff does not find that to be a unique circumstance here. Given all of that, staff is recommending denial of this variance request to reduce the minimum required front yard setback from 20 feet to 19.6 feet. Happy to take any questions from the board.
Thanks for that presentation, Mr. Campbell. Are there any questions of staff? I see none.
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry.
sure. Give it a shot here. Okay, just to be really clear, because I'm trying to understand it, you actually felt very positive about 2 out of the 3 pieces here, correct? And that the only piece is that we're talking about 6 inches. You keep talking about about 4 feet, but it's really 6 inches, right? The difference between the 19.6 and the 20 foot?
I believe in this case it would be, I'm trying to do the math in my head, it's 0.6 feet, so not quite 6 inches, slightly more than that, I believe.
It'd be, what?
But yes, in terms of the other 2 findings, staff does find that those are met in terms of reasonableness of the use as well as impact on essential character.
So for them to reduce it by a foot, literally taking a foot off of, it would be a substantial waste of materials, but it would be in compliance. My other question is, isn't the adjacent house at 12 foot? Or is that, am I reading that wrong? I can't see it. It says preliminary subject to change. Oh, that's 22 feet, okay.
But yeah, I'm not exactly seeing, that would be 23.1 to the north, and I don't have the full diagram for the home to the south. Although again, a lot of these homes do have permitted encroachments through that vestibule or open front porch language.
So again, it's fine as is, it's just but the fact that it is
Correct.
doing continuous transparency, that there is, it's a totally transparent piece. Are they actually going to be heating this now simply because they're adding windows? I mean, you're saying that it's adding 196 square feet, but I don't know that, because if they're not insulating it and heating it, it's really not part of the square footage. It still would be a 2-season porch.
Well, and staff does typically, the zoning code considers a 3-season or 2-season to be an enclosed portion of the structure and part of that principal structure. The language in that section talking about permitted obstructions talks about an open front porch that is not enclosed on the sides. It can be roofed, such as it is today, but cannot be fully enclosed.
But in the wall, it looked to me on the drawings that it was literally, they were taking the existing openings. If you go to the section or the elevation, they literally are taking the openings and filling it in with windows. They're not filling it in with wall.
Correct, other than I know they are converting some of the existing, what would be support columns, to be sections of wall. Again, they are enclosing the structure, and that's what's triggering the variance requirements.
Okay, and so, again, pardon me if I'm trying to be dumb here, but I keep on thinking that we're actually the Board of Adjustment too, so I'm trying to adjust here and figure out. So the staff really believes that if they took a foot off going down to the foundation, that this would be okay to do? I'm just trying to figure out here's an existing home, it's a great idea to enclose it. I looked at the rest of the houses on the street, and yes, they don't have full width in porches, but they have partial in porches that are sticking out that far and stuff. So I'm just trying to understand here, help me out.
Sure, Board Member Grants Corsh. So that is a possible, and that's where staff sees kind of, there are opportunities to solve this issue without requiring a variance. Moving that footprint slightly back, not even a foot, would bring it to be at that 20-foot required front yard for a principal structure, and not require a variance whatsoever.
Okay. Thank you for filling in. That's great. You did a great job.
Any other questions, staff? I see none. Let's open the public hearing. Is the applicant present? If you want to step forward and give your name and address for the record, please. And limit your comments to 10 minutes, please.
Sure.
Sorry.
Is that visible?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Ben Schwartz. I'm here on behalf of the homeowners, Michelle McGraw and Tony Dodge.
Your address, please.
Sorry,
Your address, please.
I'm sorry.
Your address. Where's your business located?
Oh, the address of the business. Pull that up. It's 4725. It's in Golden Valley. Pull it up for you. There's no internet.
That's okay. Let's keep moving.
Okay. So, yeah, as mentioned, the project was pretty much described exactly what I was preparing to do here. All I was going to argue in addition were that many of the houses in their direct vicinity, as you can see on the screen here, I think there's 8 other homes on the same block. They all have very similar porches. These 8 in particular have shorter setbacks than the 20 feet that's required, anywhere between 14 and a half feet and 18 feet. And as I already mentioned as well, we're keeping kind of in spirit of the code, and we're just trying to enclose the porch to look similar to the rest of the homes on the block. All of the other ones in question are enclosed as well.
Yeah, so for us, we have these 3 legal findings. I'm sure you're familiar with them. I read your response in the packet. So for us, what we need to do is, even though there are other houses that may look similar, we don't know the circumstances. We're just focused on this property. And is there something unique about the property that would cause you not to be able to use the property in a reasonable way?
I mean, I feel we are using it in a reasonable way. There's nothing unique stopping the homeowner from tearing out the foundation and the rest of the front of the house to move it 5 inches, but we just felt that that would be a large waste in terms of carbon footprint and just construction waste, and kind of an undue hardship seeing that the rest of the homes on the street do not follow that same required variance or ordinance.
Yeah, that's kind of captured in finding 3, that it's in the spirit of the locality. So what we're looking for is something that has to do with a practical or unique characteristic about the property itself. You're saying you can't think of anything that's unique about the property itself.
Not the piece of land itself. All I can really speak to is the fact that the home itself was there as a pre-existing condition to the owners, and it was just built there 120 years ago, and it happens to fall 4.8 inches inside the 20 feet.
Okay.
I got
Yes, Mr. Hutchins.
a question for you. I see there's quite a large tree right in front of the porch. How close are we talking? 6 feet-ish, guesstimation?
Homeowners are here as well, I believe about 6-7 feet. I think it's about 6 feet.
Okay. So then the existing porch probably has a foundation underneath it, correct?
It does.
So by digging up that existing foundation,
You'd lose the tree.
you lose the tree. Yep, that's all.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions, Mr. Schwartz? I see none. Thank you very much for your
Yep.
testimony. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of the application? Yes, ma'am. If you could give your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle McGraw, and my address is 4737 Colfax. And I wasn't really planning to speak today, but I wanted to make sure we had a chance to answer, I think, some of your questions, Commissioner, around the, it is just a 4-inch setback. These would be windows all the way around, so it's not moving anything. We wanted to be able to retain the existing look and feel of the house and contain that porch, because you'll see it's stucco all the way around. So that's a piece of what we were trying to do. We were looking to address some structural issues as well. It would be a 3-season unheated. I think we're going to, if we're lucky, putting in an electrical outlet, but unheated, unchained, not taking down anything inside the house. So it is just trying to take an old existing home, as I'm sure many of your applicants want to do, and do some of the work without having to do this significant removal of walls, moving of things. That project would be a prohibitive project. We wouldn't take that on. But we were looking to take the space we had, use the existing structure as much as possible, fill in with windows so that it was still open and visible, make it a little more usable for us, keep an older home a little less creaky along that space. And we understand all the issues, but our goal was to try to improve our old space within that footprint and then keep that stucco and keep that look and feel as much as possible to match the neighborhood as well. But it is 3-season, no heat, no water, maybe an outlet, maybe a ceiling fan if we're lucky, and just improving the property existing as it is, as opposed to taking down a bunch of walls and things and moving it back 4 inches. So that was our intention.
All right. Thanks for your testimony.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Johannesson.
Thank you. So what if you enclosed the rear porch, or, you know what I mean? What if you made this enclosed space in the rear of the house and not in the front of the house?
We already have a porch on the back of the house that's behind, there's a deck and a porch on the back. It's an east-facing porch, and it gets really, it's nice, it gets very warm. And so we do use it, but we already have a porch in that space. We're trying to address some of the structural issues on the front of the house, as well as do some enclosure and be able to use that space as well.
Any other questions of Ms. McGraw? I see none. Oh, yeah. You don't have a question. Okay.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks
everyone.
again. Thanks for coming down. Anyone else like to speak in favor of this application? I see no one. Anyone would like to speak against it? I see no one. Let's close the public hearing. Board comment? Yep, Ms. Wang.
So my biggest challenge here was finding the unique characteristic of this piece of land. And it looks to be, standard Minneapolis parcel, nothing specific about it that makes it terribly unique. But as Mr. Hutchins brought up too, is the tree in the front. So we do not know the diameter of the tree, the root structure underneath it, and just those details makes me wonder about not allowing this variance. Any difficulties to making those changes and not allowing the setback would create additional challenges, and that's what I find unique to this particular parcel of land.
Thanks for those comments. Mr. Hutchins?
Thanks, Chair Perry. I would say I think the staff did a good job reviewing the site, and I think this is exactly what we're here to do. They could not have used the age of the home, the small amount of the setback change, the proximity of the old tree, putting it at risk. I don't think they could have used it as a city staff member in their report as a challenge, but I think that's exactly what we're here to do. I would say, notwithstanding staff findings, I would move a motion to grant the variance.
There's a
Based on
motion to
those.
grant the variance based on those findings. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yeah.
Yes, Ms. Grant Squirsh.
I want to thank you both for.
Could you put your microphone
I'm sorry.
down?
I do appreciate that, because, I mean, again, we're talking about 4 inches, and I know that we can't look at this age of the structure, but one must be realistic in that a structure that's from 1909, we want to include them in our portfolio of projects that our city has. And by doing this, we actually are benefiting and extending the use. Further, the other piece of this is because it was so well done with transparency on all 3 sides, and I think that is an important piece, even though it is technically enclosed, it's glass, you can see through it. There's this thing about the front porch being one of the most important things for health, safety, and welfare in terms of eyes on the street. And this is a very busy street, and there are eyes on the street from these other porches, so I wanted to commend them for doing the same thing, that this would allow for more visual surveillance on the street. And that's really important, because without it, it's very dark to go back the 7 feet to their main structure, and this allows that. So I think it's great that we look at this reasonably and allow some adjustment here for this.
Thanks for those comments. Anyone else? With that, will the clerk please call the roll on the motion?
Callahan?
Aye.
Eicholtz?
Aye.
Grant Squirsh?
Aye.
Hutchins?
Aye.
Ingram?
Aye.
Johannesen?
Aye.
Smakarova is absent, and Wing.
Aye.
There are 7 ayes.
So that motion is approved. Your project is approved, and good luck with it. Thanks for coming down again. We've completed all of our items on the agenda. Is there any new business or old business?
Chair Perry, I do realize I neglected to mention one other communication. We have received another appeal of the decision of the Board of Adjustment. At the last hearing, 4421 Aldrich Avenue South, variance to maximum garage height. They have appealed that and will be going to the Business, Housing, and Zoning Committee of the City Council.
Ah, all right. Thank you.
And Chair Perry, if I can add a different announcement. Going back, we had some discussion with some of you folks about event rates at the Hoff Ramp tonight or in the future. So if you do run into issues using your voucher this evening, if you could just take a picture or grab a receipt so we can make sure to reimburse you appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, our next meeting will be July 11th, 2024. The July 4th holiday is the first week, so we will be meeting on the 11th. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.